Good evening, everyone. That's better. That's a note to all of us that we are being recorded tonight, and we all need to remember to press our buttons when we're speaking into the microphone. So good evening. Welcome to those listening in the public gallery. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this evening. And as we begin, please would you make a warm welcome for Father Daniel from Our Lady of Mount Carmel and St. George, just down the road, who's going to provide our blessing for tonight. Thank you, Father Daniel.
Thank you very much. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, you have given authority to those who rule and lead us on earth. Grant to those who have authority in this place the health, peace, concord, and stability to use their authority aright, which you have given to them. For you, O King of heaven, are the one who gives mankind glory and honor and power over our world. Lord, make the councils here in this place conform to what is good and pleasing to you, using the power you have given them with reverence, peacefully and gently, they may find favor with you. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. And a prayer for peace. Almighty God, from whom all thoughts of truth and peace proceed, kindle, we pray, in all our hearts the true love of peace, and guide with your pure and peaceable wisdom those throughout the nations of the earth, that in tranquility your kingdom may go forward, till the earth is filled with the knowledge of your love, through Christ our Lord. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Item number 1, we have no business to be discussed on that, as I am here. Apologies to, look, Conservative Whip, would you like to tell me apologies, please?
No apologies for absence and none for lateness, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies from Councillor Margaret Greer and Alev Jarzamol.
Thank you. And Green Party? No apologies. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Father. This is my first full council meeting since I've been inaugurated as the mayor, and it's been a great honour. I feel very supported. The officers have been wonderful in guiding me and making sure I'm in my right place. Thank you. And the last few weeks, as you can imagine, have been extraordinarily busy and enormously rewarding. It's been such a privilege to attend my first of many of the citizenship ceremonies that occur in this chamber. And they're such a reminder of the uplifting occasion and watching people from across the world receive their certificates and officially become British citizens. It's been very inspiring, and thanks to my Deputy Mayor for undertaking some of the ceremonies as well. I'm also very proud to have attended the Armed Forces Day parade, both here and at City Hall, recognising those who have served and continue to serve our country. It was wonderful to see representatives from all 3 services, veterans, cadets, and the civic leaders coming together in such a fitting tribute. And on that note, today, the 1st of July, is the 110th anniversary of the Battle of the Somme, which is a truly dreadful and devastating day of the Battle of the First World War. I've actually visited the site, and it really is truly dreadful. And on that first day, 110 years ago, some 19,000 men died and 57,000 casualties. So that's a real reminder of the importance of our Armed Forces Day and of our annual remembrance and supporting all those who are serving us today to protect us and working to keep us safe. We will remember them. Continuing my mayoral theme, the Windrush Day, which was put in place as another enormously memorable occasion, celebrating the contribution made by the Windrush generation to Enfield and our country. These events remind us of the richness and diversity of our borough and the importance of recognising those who have shaped it. At this wonderful event in Pims Park, the actor Rudolph Walker unveiled what I'm told is the world's first talking solar-powered bench, complete with its own website, windrushenfield.com, and accompanied by 3 further benches across the borough. It's a wonderful example of innovation, accessibility, and community spirit. And on behalf of all of us, congratulations to everyone who was involved in bringing such an imaginative project to life. And as many as you know, I've been celebrating with the Brownies becoming mayor, and I asked them to write down 3 things they would do if they had become mayor. And they were wonderful ideas, which I've got in the chamber. And they were helping people, caring for the environment, and of course, getting everyone a day off school. But my favourite answer, which was simply just to be myself. And I thought that was a rather wonderful reminder that being kind, authentic, and simply being yourself are some of the greatest qualities that we can all bring to our role in public life. The other great highlight of my mayoral week so far was the Volunteers Week, which was held across Enfield town. They had sites in Enfield Market, on the Fountain Island, and in Library Green. So it was really bringing the town to life. More than 20 youth organisations from across the borough transformed the town centre with displays, activities and demonstrations. We had scouts, guides, cadets, emergency services, sports groups, and many others showcasing the very best of what volunteering offers our young people. It was a fantastic celebration of community spirit and deserves a huge bravo to everyone who organised and took part. Along the way of being mayor, there's been so many medals presented, certificates awarded, and special moments shared. They may seem like small occasions individually, but together they tell the story of an extraordinary borough full of people making a difference every single day. I'd also like to thank my Deputy Mayor, Councillor Chris Joanides, for his support in representing the Mayor's office. His assistance has been greatly appreciated. I'm particularly, as you know, passionate about celebrating Enfield's rich heritage and stories, and I have started working with our museum and archivists, exploring the wonderful collections available at the Civic Centre, the Dugdale Arts Centre and Forty Hall. And I direct you at the moment to go and look at the display downstairs in reception, which is currently running some information about the civic regalia. And next week, on the 4th of July, the United States marks the 250th anniversary of its Declaration of Independence. And we've begun looking into the fascinating historic links between Enfield and America. And it's remarkable how often our borough appears in history. And I hope to share some more of these stories over the year. And we're celebrating my mayor starting on Friday. And I look forward to welcome you, many of you there. I will also be announcing my chosen charities very shortly, having taken time to learn more about the many excellent organisations serving our borough. But tonight, I am saddened to report the passing of former councillor Colin Robb. I understand that some members may wish to pay tribute, and I'm firstly inviting Douglas Councillor Taylor to speak first, followed by Councillor Rye, please. Thank you. Before we do that, I beg your pardon, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is the mic working okay? I can't tell standing here. For new members, it is customary to acknowledge the contribution that councillors who have passed away have made in the past. And I recognise that there may be the vast majority of councillors in the chamber who don't know, never knew Colin Robb. But that, I don't think, removes the responsibility to acknowledge contributions that people have made. And we do this for people of whichever political party they were. So I'm going to say a few words about Colin, who was a councillor in St Peter's Ward from 1994 to 2002. Now, St Peter's Ward no longer exists. The reorganisation of wards that came into play in 2002 meant that it disappeared and was absorbed into what is now the Lower Edmonton Ward. Now, Colin was born in Coventry and relocated with his family to Barrow-in-Furness, and moved to London for work and settled in Edmonton, where he raised his family. He served on the council mostly prior to the changes in decision-making made by the government that introduced the cabinet system away from what was a committee-driven system. And Colin served on a whole host of committees. It would be eye-watering to think that any of us would be able to do that and do the other things that now we're required to do as councillors. But he was on areas such as economic development, planning, environment, housing benefit, area committees, road traffic, school admissions and Greenbelt, as well as external organisations, North London Waste, for example. And so it was in his second term where there was this transition into the cabinet system, and it was trialled in Enfield before it was a legal requirement, and he was the assistant lead, or the assistant cabinet member, as it would be now, in the environment portfolio. 2001, he had a stroke and became partially paralysed with speech aphasia, and that clearly was a life-changing event for him. But he continued to enjoy literature, current affairs, and commented on social media, particularly his Facebook site, on a whole host of political issues, and he pulled no punches. He wasn't hesitant in making clear where he stood on issues, and would be critical of what he saw as mistakes in policy, whether that was local or national. His funeral is on Monday, July the 13th at 10:30 at St. Demetrius Greek Orthodox Church in Logan Road, Edmonton. Colin died at the age of 94, and a good innings, I think. But rest in peace, Colin, and thank you for your work for the betterment of residents, trying to make the world a better, more tolerant and sustainable place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Rye.
Thank you, Your Worship. Colin was elected on the same day I was first elected to the council back in 1994, and I recall him being a gentleman taller than me, which isn't difficult, with hair brushed back and quite informally dressed for that period for councillors who tended to wear suits, as a number of us are this evening. Colin was an extremely diligent councillor. I actually took the trouble of counting the number of committees and the number of outside bodies he served on. So he served on 16 different committees under the committee system, and he served on 17 outside bodies, which is an absolutely phenomenal workload. He was very clear in his views, as Councillor Taylor has said, and was very happy to express them, but always in a constructive way, not in a way that brought about conflict. I found that he was very fair, and he treated members of the other party on the council at that point with great courtesy, and it was appropriate to have conversations with him outside of committee meetings, and he was always generous in his comments and in what he had to say. It was a great sadness that his health took a turn for the worse and he decided to stand down from the council. I'm delighted he had such a long innings, maintained his interest in Enfield. We all need councillors who are as diligent and as hard-working as Colin, and we send our commiserations to his family and friends. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And we'll take a moment to please stand if you can and join me in a minute's silence. Thank you, councillors. Thank you for that. I understand that we have a birthday in the council chamber, so I'll just take a moment to wish Councillor Abdullah a very happy birthday today. And also the festivities continue because, as you know, we've all thankful that England has won. Yay! So those are things to be celebrating. Going forward into the meeting, I intend to continue to preside over this meeting in a firm and fair manner. I will ensure opportunities are given to members from all sides of the chamber, and I will not accept rude or discourteous interruptions. May I also remind members that when I stand, you will sit. Please wait until I invite you to speak. If you wish to request an extension of time or move any other procedural motion, please do so at the end of a speech and not during it. Thank you. Right. Declarations of interest, councillors. Councillor Taylor.
Could I make a declaration of a non-pecuniary interest in item number 6, the Treasury Management Outturn, which obviously refers to a historic period, and my declaration is during that period I was a member of the board of one of the council companies, Energetic.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Halloran.
Madam Mayor, I need to declare non-pecuniary interest in item 6, the Treasury report, as I am chairman of Housing Gateway Limited.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I would like to make a declaration of pecuniary interest on 10.6 motion, as I am HMO license holder and I will withdraw myself from room when the debate starts.
Thank you, councillor. Yes, councillor Bone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just declare a non-pecuniary interest in 10.6 as well, as I have family members who are HMO licence holders within the borough. Thank you.
Councillor Pratt.
Madam Mayor, I'll declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 6 as the appointed Director of Energetic.
Not seeing any other declaration of interest, we move on. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meetings. Members are asked to agree the minutes of the previous council meeting held on Wednesday, the 27th of May, 2026, as correct record. Is that agreed?
Madam Mayor, I move the minutes as a correct record.
I second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you. Item 6, Treasury Management Outturn Report 2025-26. Can I ask a member to move this item? Councillor Hockney, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and we are certainly on a journey. This new Conservative administration is on a journey to sound finances and fiscal discipline. And we have already started the hard work. We have already found significant savings and wasteful spending in this authority. But on any journey, you have to remember where you started and what brought you to this point. And the Treasury report provides the perfect guide to that. We are inheriting £1.29 billion of debt that the previous administration left us. So it's very important that we do note this report of the previous administration's record. And also, there's a recommendation decision that Cabinet took to reclassify some of the energetic debt from revenue into capital. And one of the really good news items in that is part of that takes pressure off our revenue reserves. So already this brand new Conservative administration is taking the small steps that are needed to bring back fiscal discipline to this authority. The report highlights that the previous administration spent £26.5 million on debt in the previous year. That is a huge debt bubble, and it impacts on frontline services, and we are inheriting that situation. And it's why this Conservative administration will follow the auditor's advice that we must get debt down. The report also mentions about the 3.18% of historic debt. Now, we on this side warned the previous administration many, many times that interest rates would go up and the huge risks of doing that. And the previous administration took out new loans before they left at rates of 4.4 to 4.69%. Higher rates means more debt interest, means more money coming out of frontline services. And that is all thanks to Rachel Reeves' management of the economy, because gilt rates surged to the highest rate in over 30 years. We also saw debt interest payments climb by £3 million from 24-25 to 25-26. To put that into context, that is 6 times the amount of savings that were realised by the previous administration closing 7 libraries. They closed 7 libraries to save £500,000. The increase is £3 million, rising to £26.5 million. Imagine what could have been done with that money on frontline services. And it is why we are committed to seeing sound finances moving forward. I'd ask members to note in the schools element that there is a deficit within the dedicated schools grant, and separate to that, we've also given a number of schools £6.9 million of loans. This is a very challenging position that we're inheriting. I know that Councillor Day is working morning, noon and night to see how we can support schools and move forward with the situation. I'd also ask members to note the housing revenue account. The last page mentions the loan to value rate. Running at, we are inheriting a situation that's running at 50%. That is the absolute maximum level that it can be. And that is going to provide this new administration a very challenging position to be moving forward on. And I know that Councillor Chamberlain is working very closely with his officers. It's thanks to the previous administration's decisions that they took that we're inheriting this situation, which provides very significant risk to this authority. I'd also ask members to note that the company loans, well, the companies that are still remaining during Labour's tenure, we've got 2 companies left. In total, there is £197 million of capital and revenue debt on the books. And certainly I know that Councillor Smith is looking very closely at the companies, and particularly working with Councillor Chamberlain in terms of Housing Gateway. So we deliver value for residents whilst also managing this debt. So this report is a very timely reminder. We should absolutely note this report on the previous administration's records, and we should also support the Cabinet decision, which is a common sense decision, in part helps our financial position. So finally, Madam Mayor, it's clear that there will be a huge amount of work to sort out the mess that has been left to us by the previous administration. We have started, and rest assured at the end of the 4 years we'll get debt down, we'll get debt interest payments down, so that we can deliver for the residents' priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I didn't get the motion seconded, so my apologies.
I'll second and reserve my right to speak, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So, from the largest opposition, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was quite happy to second this motion as well, this report. So, I'd like to propose acceptance and noting of this Treasury Management Outturn report from the Executive Director of Resources. And I must confess to feeling a little odd and unusual about this agenda item. It's a bit of an out-of-body experience. I'm on the outside looking in. Now, that's because this is an outturn for 2025-26, and that was the year to the end of 31st of March 2026. That was the last financial year when Labour were responsible for this council's finances, and I was Cabinet Member for Finance. Now, it's interesting to hear what the Cabinet Member opposite has said on the matter, and speaking to a report, the contents of which you have very little or nothing to do with, have no responsibility for, and clearly, some would say, little understanding. And that's particularly since this is such a good report. But let's remember what the Tories have previously said about this. Members opposite, year on year on year, have said the sky would fall in and Enfield Council would be bankrupt. The Enfield Council was frivolous with money and not prudent. But what does this report say? Now, the report itself says it's the administration had sound financial management, and the outturn year 25-26 shows a record of low interest rates. This report shows interest rates of 3.18% with long-term investment in housing, regeneration and climate action, improvement in the financial management and low interest payments to the general fund of only 7.5%. Real financial information in the report. Now, under Labour, Enfield has invested in housing and regeneration. We've protected frontline services, and the overall debt last year, it hardly moved. It moved by 4.3 million with a lot of investment in things that matter to residents. So this report, notwithstanding 16 years of continued underfunding by the Tories and neglect, continues to show sound financial management. Labour were proactive and forward-looking in their borrowing and investment. And now, having held it together over this period with considerable pressure, and it's also absorbed by the council senior management team and executives, that this Tory administration have, well, I guess as probably Theresa May would say, a strong and stable basis for which to wisely invest the 200 million that the Labour government has provided to Enfield Council, pushed, prodded and shoved for by colleagues on this side. Yeah. Now, I'd like to thank the finance officers for their hard work and commitment over the volatile years. And I'd like to wish the minority administration well on their managing of the council finances. But heaven help you if you're a resident of Enfield who's poor or disadvantaged, who is in need of adult social care, is dealing with a housing crisis, and is hoping for a decent and affordable house to live in. The Tories' record of what matters will be laid bare in this chamber as we assess their treatment of finances going forward. Now, I heartily recommend and support this report to members of this chamber, and thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Heathwood.
Madam Mayor, Your Worship, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak, and I'm going to get the right one because I'm very good at that. I rise to speak on this report because it lays bare the deeply troubling state of Enfield's finances. Our borrowing, as Councillor Hockney has said, is now at 1.29 billion. Servicing that debt to £26.5 million, 7.5 million of which are for debt repayments for Meridian Water. And this is a great scheme that we started discussing when I was last on the council 20 years ago, and has so far only delivered 301 houses. These debt pressures have real consequences. They mean Enfield Council is unable to provide the level of frontline services our residents deserved. I remember reading about the scheduled maintenance for council homes that was cut last year so severely that only urgent repairs are now carried out. This is not sustainable, and it is not fair to the people who rely on us. The council must remain committed to delivering services efficiently, eliminating waste, and bringing our debt under control. Only then can we restore the standard of services that Enfield residents rightly expect. Madam Mayor, I wish to say the report. I goes for it.
Thank you, Councillor. Does it count as your maiden speech after 20 years? Councillor Johns.
Sorry. As this is my first council meeting as a Green Party councillor, it's a real privilege to be here. I'm also very aware I'm a new voice in the chamber, so I promise to start gently before building up into anything too radical. I want to reflect briefly on what we are stepping into and what this report tells us about the direction of travel. On the surface, this is a picture of financial compliance, but as we dig down into the weeds, we are seeing growing pressure in multiple systems. I recognise the work that has gone into this report and that the Council remains within its prudential limits, but compliance today does not necessarily mean sustainability tomorrow. The report highlights that the Council is supporting schools through licence deficit agreements, allowing them to manage short-term cash flow pressures. We now have 12 schools in this position, with 4 already on repayment plans. And that raises a pretty simple but very important question. How exactly are these schools expected to pay this money back? Because schools aren't businesses. They can't simply sell off assets or conjure up extra income when budgets get tight. So in practice, repayment means reductions in staffing, teachers, support staff, or specialist roles. Or as we've already seen recently, changes in sickness policies. That has real consequences. And these impacts fall most heavily on disadvantaged children. So this is not just a financial issue, it's a question of social justice. From a green perspective, we look at financial strategy in the same way we look at climate strategy, through the lens of long-term resilience. And at the moment, we are relying on short-term tools, borrowing, deficit management, and the use of assets to manage immediate pressures. These are important tools, but they are not a long-term solution in themselves. Because just as with climate policy, short-term fixes can store bigger problems for the future, pushing pressure down the line. If we are serious about resilience, financial, social, and environmental, then we need to think longer term. We need a system that reduces pressure rather than passing it on, especially not onto schools and children. So yes, this report shows compliance, but it also reveals something about the system we are inheriting. And I hope, as a council, we can begin to address these challenges in a way that is not only financially sound, but also fair and sustainable without placing penalties on schools that are already struggling with deficits. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. And welcome to the Chamber, and that was your maiden speech, so thank you very much. Next speaker, Councillor O'Halloran, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and can I just first of all welcome you and Deputy Mayor to your role and new place in this chamber, and also to say I'm thrilled to stand and speak in this chamber for the first time under a Conservative administration. If I could begin off just by sharing some comments on these financial reports, these Treasury reports, with new members to the Council. The first thing would be to say is the more of these you read, even if you're not from an accounting or financial background, the easier they do become to digest. So that's the good news. The bad news is, of course, at 24 pages, this is a very slim Treasury report, and they do often go into a couple of hundred pages, so we all have that to look forward to. Anyway, turning to the report at hand, Madam Mayor, this Treasury report. For those of us who have been reading these reports now for 4 years, we're familiar with the positive, reassuring accountant's language you get in these reports. But when we read this report, we know the tale it tells. It's eye-watering debt, 1.29 billion, and it is punishing interest rates servicing that debt of the general fund, the last financial year being 26.5 million. Madam Mayor, in 2010, when we left power, the debt of the council was 220 million. 16 years on, it's increased by over £1 billion, almost a six-fold increase. That, I'm afraid, is the legacy of Enfield Labour to the people of Enfield. The previous leader talked regularly about investing in the borough, but as we sit here now, where is the return on that investment? Yeah. Where is that return for the people of Enfield? We have a failing energy company, non-profitable, will have to be sold off now to the private sector. We have a housing development that should have nearly 10,000 houses, only 301 houses being built. So despite the positive language in this report, despite the positive language and spin from Councillor Lever as to the state of the council's finances, we know My colleagues on this side of the chamber have a difficult challenge ahead of them, as Councillor Hockley has outlined, and I think I speak for every backbench councillor on this side of the chamber. We wish our colleagues who have taken responsibility of cabinet memberships, the grave responsibility, all the best in their endeavours in getting this debt down and reducing these eye-watering interest rate payments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ayton, please.
Is this working now?
Yes.
I'm usually quite loud, but Madam Mayor, I think this is the first. I think this is the first and probably last time I'm going to agree with Councillor Hockley on something, and it's that we should absolutely note this report on the previous administration's record. For years, Conservative members stood in this chamber telling residents that we'd driven the council towards financial disaster. They attacked our borrowing, they attacked our debt strategy, and throughout the election campaign, they painted a picture of a council supposedly on the brink. Well, the awkward truth for them is that they spent years telling residents that we had wrecked the council's finances, only to arrive in office and publish a report that states exactly the opposite of that. It's actually quite remarkable, having fought the whole campaign attacking Labour's financial management, they're now governing on the basis of a sound financial position created by the previous Labour administration, because that's exactly what this report shows. But borrowing finished a year below the debt cap agreed by Council, and the first phase of the Council's debt reduction strategy was delivered a year ahead of schedule, but they wouldn't say that. That's hardly the picture of financial chaos, and they now have actually an additional £203 million thanks to our Labour government. But there's another point that deserves to be made. The report states that cash balances were higher than budgeted, reducing the need for external borrowing. That simply reinforces what we on these benches have been saying all along. We borrowed because Conservative government stripped our funding to the bone. I'm tired of saying it, leaving us with little choice but to borrow to invest and maintain local services. Now, with a Labour government beginning to restore proper funding to local authorities, our reliance on borrowing had reduced. And that's not a contradiction of our approach. It is proof that we were right all along about why borrowing was necessary. The report also shows that reserves have been strengthened, giving the Council greater financial resilience, and it confirms that the capital programme was financed better than expected. It also recognises some genuinely important achievements that we delivered, like the reduction in the number of children coming into care because of successful early intervention, like the reduction in how we ended the use of expensive hotels for temporary accommodation, and a significant reduction in the cost of homelessness services through better prevention and management. These are real improvements that we did to make a difference to residents while strengthening the financial position of the Council. Now, I'm not pretending that local government finances are easy, they're not, but we did a good job, and this report puts to bed all the nonsense that we heard from the other side over the recent years. The claims that we'd been reckless, the claims that borrowing was out of control, the claims that the financiers had somehow been irresponsibly managed. Now, once you strip away the Council's finances, political slogans, you're left with the facts, and the facts are in this report. So I genuinely welcome this report, and I have to say there is something rather satisfying about a minority Conservative administration bringing forward the report containing all these facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gozell. Councillor, forgive me, Orojo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, it is a profound honour to rise in this chamber for the first time and for my maiden speech. Representing the residents of White Webb's Wood, who sent me here with a mandate, with a message, and I suspect, I quite hope that someone would finally read the small print. And boy, we did. Tonight, we have read all the small prints, and what a read it was. This Treasury Management Outturn report is, in many ways, a perfectly polite document. It is measured, it is technical, it is carefully, I would say, worded. But beneath the prudential indicators and the liability benchmarks and the MRP provisions, there is a story. And the story is Labour let this borough carrying 1.29 billion of debt. Yeah. Borrowed in the name of the people of Enfield. And what did those people get in return? Nothing. Let us look at all the subsidiaries. because this is where it gets interesting. So, Energetic, a council-owned energy company, owes this council 56.1 million. Housing Gateway Limited owes this council 141.1 million. Nearly 200 million of taxpayers-backed loans to two council-owned companies, and the return to the general fund for 2025-2026, zero. Not a penny. The report says it plainly, and I quote directly, the investment in Energetic and HGL generated no investment income in 2025 and 2026. I want to make sure this lands, because it should. And then there is Energetic's tranche 1 funding, when a £3 million rebalancing has been carried out, resulting in a 1.7 million reclassification from venue to capital. We are asked tonight to approve this. The report assures us that it is purely an accounting and representation change. I'm sure it is. I find it telling, genuinely telling, that Labour financial legacy requires so much representing. This is not financial management. This is financial archaeology. Now, 12 Enfield schools, as raised by the Green Councillor, are in licence deficit. They owe this council 6.9 million. That figure has risen from 6.4 million the year before. And 4 of those schools, 4 do not yet have an agreed repayment plan. Schools borrowing from the council that itself is borrowing 1.29 billion. Councillor Lever, this is what Labour built in Enfield. Yeah. But Madam Mayor, I want to be extremely fair, because there are generally encouraging numbers in the report. Ooh. I'm going to skip it then. We support the recommendations tonight. The numbers are moving in the right direction, and we will not play politics with
Councillor,
genuine progress.
You. Yeah, time. So thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Well done on your maiden speech as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ali, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for becoming the mayor, and I wish you a successful year ahead. And I also would like to congratulate my good friend, Chris, to become the deputy mayor. And also, I would like to thank the officers who worked really hard in the past years with Labour administration to keep the finance straight. When we had 750 million from our plate snatched away by the previous government.
Did you?
Madam Mayor, looking at this report, some of the elements, I agree with Councillor Hockney, what he said. Let me extract it from there. This report demonstrates that the Council has managed its borrowing, investments and cash responsibly during 25-26. Who ran this Council during 25-26? It's Labour administration, and balanced the book during all the precarious time, not only the Enfield, all over the world people were having during the COVID and afterwards. Particularly engaging that the general fund borrowing costs came in 26.5 million, almost 5 million below the budget, and that debt servicing remains at just under 7.5%, well below 10.12% affordability range agreed by the members. Madam Mayor, some of the other positive side of this report, Councillor Hockney already mentioned, I'm not going to mention it, but what I'm going to say, our elders always say, Rome was not built in a day. Let me finish, it's my time. It's my time, and let me finish, yeah? This strong financial foundation did not happen by accident. They are the result of the investment strategy put in place by the previous Labour administration. We took the difficult but responsible decision to invest in our borough, particularly in much-needed housing, regeneration and infrastructure. Madam Mayor, my time is very quickly finishing, even before I start, but I want to say a last point. We invested in housing, and when I was sitting, the leader of this administration, he was sitting in the different committees with me, and politics aside, we agreed that the acute problem issues we are having, our residents are having with the housing. We must do something, no matter how. Yes, of course, we have political differences, and we will say different way to sort this out. My question to them: are they still opposing to build, or are they going to make a U-turn for the sake of Enfield residents? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rye, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm delighted that the members opposite are owning this report, because it is a tale of woe and it is a catastrophe. And they have remarkably short memories, Your Worship, because most unusually we had to have a special council meeting with the auditors present to actually speak to us and advise us that the level of borrowing achieved by the Labour group opposite in power was unsustainable. And they had to make decisions to reduce that amount of borrowing that is reflected in this paper and reflects them spending less in terms of revenue to actually fund the debt that they have. That has conveniently not been mentioned this evening. They also are unable to own the fact that when you are spending over 26 million servicing debt, it means we have no enforcement team to speak of. It means you cannot maintain the parks at a standard that you would like. It means that you are struggling to deliver the number of libraries that we once had. It means that you have challenges across the piece. And if you reduce borrowing by only fairly small amounts, every 2%, I believe, comes back as £2 million. That is £2 million that can then be spent on frontline services. And that is the aspiration that we have, to reduce borrowing and to prioritise frontline services. It is also important to note the prudential indicators are a complete fiction, because the borrowing range and these prudential indicators are actually set by the council itself. So the council is marking its own homework. So the fact you met your own prudential indicators where you said you can borrow up to 10% and 12%, you've come in at 7.5, is not a great victory by some outside measure. It is you setting your own homework at high level so that you could borrow even more if you had chosen. It is not a good picture, and it will be very difficult to manage and move forward from this. The borrowing was always advocated as being good because borrowing was cheap, interest rates were low. Sadly, if you look at the table on page 20, you will see that the Public Works Loan Board is putting interest rates up because Rachel Reeves has made a mess of the economy and the bond rate has gone up. So that means as we need to renew the debts that they have put in place, you're borrowing at a higher level. And that is another challenge as we move forward. This is not a good story. This is a story of failure. And I'm looking forward to 4 years of success by this minority Conservative administration. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Erbil, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome this Treasury Management Outturn report because it demonstrates something very important. Not only good financial management, it's about careful planning, disciplined decision-making and long-term stewardship of public money. I would like to thank Olga and her team for this report. The report confirms that throughout 2025-26, the Council remained within every authorised Treasury limit. It managed its borrowing responsibly, maintained adequate liquidity, complied with all prudential indicators and continued to protect taxpayers' money. Those achievements that deserve recognition. What also stands out is that the cost of debt to general funds stands at 7.5% of net revenue, which is below the 10 to 12%. In fact, the report tells us that the first phase of the Council's debt reduction strategy was achieved a year earlier than planned. So this is not about homework, as Councillor Rye mentions, but it's about being responsible and in guidance. The financial year covered by this report reflects the work of the previous Labour administration. The strategies, the budget decisions, the capital programme and the Treasury approach that delivered these outcomes were put in place under Labour's leadership. Councils across the country were facing high interest rates, inflationary pressures and continuing uncertainty in local government finance. Yet despite those challenges, Enfield remained within all its borrowing limits, managed cash prudently and made progress in in reducing debt. That should give residents confidence that Labour took seriously its responsibility to manage the borough's finances, while continuing to invest in services and infrastructure. Getting these things right matter, because every pound saved in financing costs is a pound that can ultimately support frontline services, which it did. Good treasury management creates stability. Stability also allows councils to plan ahead, and planning ahead is what responsible administrations like the Labour administration have done. So while this report is formally about noting the outturn, I also think it's worth recognising the work that was underpinned to it. The previous Labour administration set a prudent financial strategy, maintaining disciplined oversight throughout a challenging economic period, and delivered results that this report clearly records. The Tories continuously claimed that this council was going bankrupt, and now evidently they can see that this is not the case, and that the Labour administration had sound financial management. Therefore, I hope the current minority administration continues to build on that strong foundation, because responsible financial management should never be a partisan issue. It is something every resident of Enfield benefits from. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Leaders.
Madam Mayor, I want to congratulate you again on your position. As a newly elected councillor in Cockfosters, I am proud to be a part of a Conservative Party minority administration. We will fix this debt issue. This report covers the finances Labour left behind and left us to inherit. This Conservative administration has been in office a matter of weeks. Every figure in it belongs to them. This council is managing £1.29 billion of external borrowing. Labour's own budget planned to borrow even more than that, up to £1.5 billion, before this Conservative administration stepped in and pulled us back from it. A significant part of this debt sits with Energetic. Another, Meridian Water, a failed project. 100 homes were meant to be built and only 301. Taxpayers' money went in and residents have seen nothing back for it. It only delivered more debt and not a single meaningful return for the people paying for it. This Conservative group did not stay silent while this was happening. We had external auditors come in and warn this former Labour council on the issues, and they did not take that seriously. We were ignored. Well, Madam Mayor, here are the numbers, and they did not work. The cost is £26.5 million in debt interest in 2025 to 26 alone. That is 7.5% of our entire budget spent servicing debt before a single service is delivered. £26.5 million would go a long way. Bin collections, frontline services, pothole repairs, our parks, SEND provisions, adult social care. Instead, it goes on debt because of decisions made long before any of us on this side sat in these seats. Every pound that goes into servicing Labour's debt is a pound that cannot go into the things residents actually notice, the things they ring this council about, the things that they expect a functioning local authority to deliver. The residents of Enfield have had enough of Labour's mismanagement of the finances. That is why they voted for change. Yeah. Councillor Hockney, our Cabinet Member for Finance, now has the job of putting this right. He has the seriousness to brief these demands and the absolute full backing of this whole Conservative side. Madam Mayor, Labour built this debt. The Conservative administration will deal with it.
Thank you, Councillor. And congratulations also on your maiden speech. It's so nice to hear so many maiden speeches tonight. Well done. Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and very kind of you for wishing me a happy birthday. Let's be clear from the outset. This report brought forward by the new minority administration does not describe a council in difficulty. It describes a council whose finances were managed responsibly, prudently, and effectively. Every treasury indicator has been met. Borrowing remains within agreed limits, risk is controlled, affordability is strong. And that's not my assertion, it is the clear conclusion in this report. Taken together, this points to a council in a strong and stable financial position. Yes, there are pressures in other social care, children's services, and homelessness, but these are challenges faced across the country. and we have managed them responsibly. And that matters, Madam Mayor, because financial strength is not simply about reducing borrowing. It's about what we choose to protect and what we enable. It means safeguarding frontline services, supporting our most vulnerable residents, delivering affordable and social housing, and addressing homelessness, and remaining ambitious for our children and their future. That's the real task before this minority administration. Reducing borrowing while continuing to deliver the service on which our residents depend. That requires balance. Managing borrowing must not become a reason to scale back investment or to weaken the service our communities rely on. It must not come at the expense of affordable homes, support for families facing homelessness, or opportunity for young people. Housing gateway has been mentioned. Madam Mayor, Housing Gateways houses 800 families with small children who otherwise would have been homeless.
Exactly.
You cannot put that on monetary value. So that's the challenge before this minority administration. They are saying, we will reduce the debt 4 years, but as minority administration, there's no guarantee you will last 4 years. Not a choice. There's not a choice between responsibility and delivery, but the discipline is to achieve both. This is the standard our residents expect, and it is the standard this administration must prove it can meet. But I bet they will fail miserably. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now, this report sets out the financial mess that this administration has inherited. And when I warned of the dire state of the council's finances and dared to suggest that it would become a big issue at the local elections, those members opposite, they laughed, Madam Mayor. They dismissed it as scaremongering. They said it was some kind of joke. Well, I can tell you what, Madam Mayor, the reality is the joke was very much on them, because they were convinced that the residents of Enfield would never vote them out.
Yeah.
But as we all know, on the 7th of May, the residents of this borough delivered their verdict.
Yeah.
Residents that had been taken for granted for too long fought back. And the great thing is that the accounts have been wrestled from the hands of Lever the Cleaver, and they now reside firmly in the hands of Safe Hands Hockney beside me. The consequences of their complacency are laid bare in these figures. Debt driven up to 1.3 billion, the equivalent of around £4,000 for every man, woman and child in this borough. The cost of servicing the debt has reached nearly 30 million a year. That money could and should have been spent on frontline services, on supporting our communities, not simply paying interest. Now, had the previous administration remained in office, there is every indication that that pattern would have continued and they would have been borrowing to go bankrupt. Borrowing without restraint while at the same time making cuts to the very services that our residents value most. Cutting our beloved local libraries to save £500,000 while at the same time providing over tens of millions in debt interest payments year after year. But crucially, there has now been a change of direction and Enfield is under new management with a future of financial responsibility, and that means a renewed focus on discipline, accountability and value for money. We made a clear promise to restore fiscal integrity, and that is exactly what we will do, Madam Mayor. Gone are the days of this authority cutting the things that residents want and forcing things upon them that they don't. And we will do all this against the backdrop of a Chancellor that has driven up borrowing rates. But thankfully, it appears that Rachel Reeves won't be with us much longer. But we can only hope that it isn't followed by what would be an even greater disaster, Ed Miliband. So I note this Treasury outturn report for 25-26, confident that plans are now in place that will lead to a far stronger position and a far more rosy report in 12 months' time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor James, please.
Sorry,
microphone on, which covers Labour's last full year in administration and shows the benefits of strong financial management, careful planning and continued investment in the borough. Despite a challenging economic climate, Enfield did continue to manage its finances responsibly. This year, our Treasury strategy delivered savings while keeping borrowing costs low and affordable. Our average borrowing rate was below budget and our investments performed better than expected, generating £4.6 million for the council. These results did enable the council to continue investing in the things that matter most to residents: new home, regeneration, climate action, schools and frontline services that people rely on, while maintaining a strong and sustainable financial position. Just as importantly, our borrowing remains affordable. The cost of servicing our debt is well below our target range and demonstrates that we struck the balance between borrowing responsibly, investing wisely and maintaining financial resilience. These investments made a real difference. Our borrowing supported the delivery of new council homes, the regeneration of Meridian Water, investment in low-carbon heating through Energetic. These are long-term investments that will improve lives and benefit residents for many years to come. The report also confirms that all borrowing remains below authorised limit. The Council is fully compliant with all legal and professional Treasury management requirements. Residents can be confident that public money is being managed safely, transparently and responsibly. These achievements are even more significant when viewed against the backdrop of continued economic uncertainty, changing interest rates and inflationary pressures. Despite these challenges, the Council has protected its financial position while continuing to invest in the services and infrastructure that our communities need and rely on. Looking ahead, the additional £200 million secured by the Labour government puts us in a stronger position, providing a solid foundation for future investment and financial stability. Madam Mayor, this report demonstrates sound stewardship of public finances, value for money for our residents and a clear commitment to investing in Enfield's future, a long way from bankrupting Enfield, as claimed by my colleagues over the other side. I'm therefore pleased to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chamberlain, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While this report doesn't make particularly cheerful reading, it does at least provide a useful snapshot of the financial position we've inherited. The report tells us that all the prudential indicators have been met, which members will know if they've read the report, simply means that the limits the council set itself and called prudential when they were back in Labour days have actually been hit. It's a very Orwellian approach to marking your own homework, as Councillor Ryan alluded. But we need to be upfront about the huge scale of the long-term financial commitments now sitting on the council's books, which, but for a bit of luck and a £30 million raid on capital income, could have found this council up a particular creek without any form of paddle. Now, the housing revenue account carries a capital financing requirement of £450 million. And although this is lower than the forecast because the last administration failed to deliver on planned development, sometimes failure can actually work in the residents' favour, as it did in this case, it still represents almost £500 million of borrowing that future administrations and tenants and residents will have to support. The report also confirms that £50 million of new borrowing was taken during that year, all using the government's HRA concessionary borrowing rate. Whilst making use of low interest rates is obviously common sense, it just shows how we're stuck in a cycle of a vicious circle of borrowing without results that we will have to break in this administration. Housing debt is not without consequence. During 25-26 alone, the HRA incurred £15.9 million in interest costs. Now, that's money that couldn't be spent on maintaining homes or improving services for tenants. That's things they really care about. Most concerning is the warnings from officers themselves. The report states the housing revenue account faces higher refinancing risk than the general fund because future housing investment will require more borrowing and less of that borrowing is already fixed. In other words, future taxpayers and tenants could be exposed to higher borrowing costs because if interest rates rise, and interest rates do fall, but they also do rise. And anyone who truly cares about Enfield should really care about this. And the fact that the arrogance we've had from across the chamber, telling everyone what a wonderful job they did, which clearly the residents of Enfield didn't believe, I think says it all. They have got a long way to go before they ever have a chance at power again.
2 seconds.
Right. So, Your Worship, our plan and our vision is to essentially make this work, and that's what we'll do.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Boztas, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I would like to congratulate yourself and the Deputy Mayor for your new roles. And Madam Mayor, I raised to speak on the Treasury Management Outturn report tonight. And I also would like to thank the officers for their hard work. Madam Mayor, I must respond to the Minority Administration's comments because what we have just heard does not address the core concerns raised in this Treasury outturn. The Minority Administration completely misses the point. The issue is not whether borrowing is permitted. It is whether this Council has a credible plan to reduce its level of financial risk to protect services, our services. A more active investment strategy and better cash flow forecasting could reduce the need for that borrowing, but again, no plans has been offered by the Minority Administration. And finally, Madam Mayor, on risk management, the Minority Administration claims it is monitoring the situation. Monitoring is not a strategy. Monitoring does not shield residents from changes in interest rates. Monitoring does not lock in lower cost borrowing when opportunities rise. What we need, Madam Mayor, proactive management and passive observation. Madam Mayor, we are not asking for miracles. We are asking for responsible financial leadership, a clear debt reduction plan, stronger investment performance, and taking clear action to manage the risk. This Minority Administration response has not addressed these issues, and residents deserve better than these unclear promises. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anu.
Is it on? Great. Madam Mayor, firstly, may I welcome you to your new role and wish you the best in your tenure. You look great in the robe, so good luck for the next year. Winning brownie points, there you go. No, she won't, no. Madam Mayor, this report marks a deeply concerning starting point for the new Conservative Minority Administration. After years of Labour control, we inherit a council whose finances have been let under enormous pressure. Whilst the report confirms that the statutory Treasury indicators have been technically been complied with, that should not distract from the wider financial reality facing this council. And as many of my colleagues have mentioned, we are now responsible for carrying over 1.29 billion of external borrowing, with net borrowing increasing again during the year. The administration is therefore being placed in the difficult position of trying to maintain essential services whilst dealing with the legacy of years of Labour borrowing and financial mismanagement. Although this general fund borrowing cost comes in below budget, largely because the capital expenditure was lower than anticipated and high cash balances reduced the need for additional borrowing, the underlying position is still very challenging. This report makes it clear that the general fund debt servicing cost is still 26.5 million this year, including 6.8 million in revenue, interest costs, and 19.7 million in debt repayments through the minimum revenue provision. That's 26.5 million that cannot be spent on repairing roads, improving our parks, improving our streets, keeping streets cleaner, supporting vulnerable residents, or investing in frontline services. Every pound spent servicing debt is a pound taken away from vulnerable residents. Furthermore, the report demonstrates, as my colleague Councillor Rai mentioned, that the Public Work Loan Board borrowing rates remain elevated, with long-term certainty rates sitting well above 5% during the year. That means future borrowing is likely to become increasingly expensive, and additional debt taken on today will inevitably place further pressures on revenue budgets in the future. Ultimately, today's borrowing becomes tomorrow's council tax pressures. Future generations of Enfield should not be unfairly saddled with the consequences of poor financial mismanagement. Yet that is precisely the position Labour has left this borough in. Madam Mayor, perhaps the most striking aspect of this report is its overall tone. From beginning to end, it is a document about managing debt, controlling borrowing, mitigating refinancing risks, monitoring interest exposure and ensuring sufficient affordability. It is not a report that speaks of financial strength. It's a report about financial constraint. It's a report that reflects years of decisions that have left this council with limited room for manoeuvre. The new Conservative administration has inherited an exceptionally difficult financial positions. The residents of this borough deserve better. So after years of Labour mismanagement, that is exactly what this fantastic minority administration is going to be doing, putting the council finances straight. So, yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. We've debated this motion quite extensively now, and so I'm going to invite just one more speaker from the opposition and my administration. Before inviting Councillor Hockney to sum up, may I ask who's going to be your speaker, please? Councillor Erbel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'll be speaking on this item. Madam Mayor, this is a good change. Their maiden speeches used to be about justifying Bojo's secret COVID parties. Now they thought we forgot about those. They hope we also forgot about the 14 years of Tory vicious cuts to Enfield, and they have ignored that fact in every single one of their speeches. They say they're now on a journey, but their report says that they begin this administration on good financial standing, where we had already taken into account the auditors' suggestions. Before they made those suggestions, we had already started bringing debt down. And let's not forget that this borough suffered from being the second worst funded council in London under the Conservatives and the seventh worst funded council across the country. Madam Mayor, what have they inherited? They've inherited a C1 best social housing landlord in the country as Enfield. Madam Mayor, they inherited record low crime in Enfield thanks to the previous Labour administration. They inherited 50% reduction in fly tipping illegal rubbish dumping thanks to Labour investment. And just 2 months ago, a family in Edmonton Green told me they were offered a brand new council house in Meridian Water. Is that what you call a failed? Is that what you call a failed project? New council houses for local families? Is that what you call? It's easy to call that failed. It's easy to call that failed from your little high castles in Cockfosters where you haven't struggled from a housing crisis. You don't understand the housing crisis because you vote against building new council houses. Madam Mayor, it's really easy for this Conservative administration to confuse residents because on one hand they promote the work of the previous administration and it's written in ink right here, and in the other, in their speeches, they speak about a council that would have gone bankrupt, this, that and the other, which is what they rehearsed for many, many years. But it's not, Madam Mayor, the Tory leader of Enfield Council has always looked up to Thatcher, the milk snatcher. So it's not a surprise that we can see within less than 1 month of running the show, he aims to sell off a public company, Energetic, which was making a profit, despite all of the words coming out of your mouth. So in the future, when residents pay more for energy prices, it's thanks to this Conservative council. Housing Gateway takes families off our streets and provides a roof over their heads. Go and speak with those families. Tell them it was failed. But thanks to this Labour government, this council will now receive more funding, which means the debt will reduce, which means services will improve, and they will build on the good work that we established. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hockney. Councillor Hockney, for summing up. No, we're going to you. You have 2 minutes, Councillor Hockney.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And just reflecting on some of the points that have been made, particularly Councillor Earble and Councillor Guzell and others, saying everything was fine and wonderful. Well, if everything was fine and wonderful, why did you leave behind years of unaudited accounts? The finance team built up huge reserves and you went through those reserves. If everything was fine, why did you need an emergency bailout of £30 million to prop up the council's finances, which, by the way, you went through before we entered the door? And you're saying reserves are absolutely fine. No, reserves are not absolutely fine. Reserves are at the absolute minimum levels. And it leaves us with a very difficult and challenging position and very little room to manoeuvre with. I heard the comment about undercutting the fact that interest rates have gone from 3 to 4% on our loans, like it doesn't matter. It does matter, because it could mean that when we're refinancing, we're spending millions of pounds more on debt interest, which is millions of pounds we're not spending on resident services. But it doesn't matter if it's millions or if it's pounds. It is taxpayers' money. And it's this profligate administration before us that have left behind. There's mentions about fairer funding. I think it's worth remembering that that was a cross-party effort calling for that. Both sides were calling for that. I will not, in terms of... Can I stop the clock?
Carry on, Councillor.
I will take no lectures about the comments about poorer and need people, when it was this administration over there that cut council tax twice. And the worst impacts were in the deputy leader and leader's wards on the other side. I'd like to actually thank the Green Group and Councillor Johns for actually mentioning schools. The main opposition group didn't mention that. The schools deficit is a very important issue that we need to be dealing with. So I'm happy to move the report going forward. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, point of order, please. Point of order, if you allow me 1 minute. My responsible cabinet member said, why did we leave?
Hold on a moment, please. Would you please advise me the procedural motion that you think has been breached?
Because the cabinet member asking us why we are leaving. We left the important audit, all the accounts are unaudited for the last few years, and we have to answer for that.
No, you don't. No.
That's not a point of order, but thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, it's a question you do need to answer. Anyway.
So we're moving to the vote for item 6, the outturn report. Those in favour, would you raise your hand? Agreed? Thank you, that's agreed. Thank you, councillors. Any abstentions? Any against? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move a procedural motion under CPR 13.20.8 to extend the time allotted to reports by 10 minutes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Day. That's seconded in council. Thank you. Agreed? Agreed. Thank you, councillors. Item 7, changes to the Constitution. Can I ask a member to move this item?
Madam Mayor, I'm moving this item, and it gives me great pleasure to bring forward this item. I certainly won't need the full time allotted. You'll be pleased to know we're able to move on with other items. But the thing I would particularly like to highlight in this report is the return of the Conservation Advisory Group. This was a significantly impactful and important part of protecting conservation in our borough, which was removed unceremoniously by the previous administration. And it gives me great pleasure to propose that we bring this back, and that, subject to its approval, Councillor Fox will be leading on that for us. That's all I really wanted to say, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak and to move this item. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. And I have Councillor Johns to speak on this. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move the amendment circulated in my name. I would like to propose that the Council procedure rules are amended further to allow for one of the opposition business items during the municipal year to be allocated.
Sorry, Councillor, my error. Could you please second the motion?
Oh, sorry, second. I second your motion.
Second, and now carry on. Sorry, Councillor.
Yes, so I would like to propose that the Council procedure rules are amended further to allow for one of the opposition business items during the municipal year to be allocated to the second largest opposition group, and for appropriate amendments to be made to the Council procedure rules by the monitoring officer to achieve that objective. Madam Mayor, this is a modest amendment, but it matters. Enfield is currently a minority-led administration. Residents did not give one party full control, and they did not elect a council where one opposition group speaks for everyone outside the administration. Opposition business is one of the few routes where opposition councillors can bring forward issues for proper public debate. If all of that time is controlled only by the largest opposition group, then other elected opposition groups are effectively locked out of that particular scrutiny route. This amendment does not remove opposition business from the largest opposition group. It does not create equal allocation. It does not create any chaos. It just asks for one item during the year, one. That is reasonable and proportionate. It's also future-proof. I ask members to support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Earble.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, we completely support what our Green colleagues have suggested. It's completely right for our Green colleagues to have a minimum of one opposition priority business, and we welcome that. Madam Mayor, this is a good report, and there's lots of positives here. However, unfortunately, we will be abstaining because we don't agree with everything in the proposals. Madam Mayor, I sat on what used to be called the Conservation Advisory Group. I was there for 2 years, and unfortunately, I say with sadness, it was like watching paint dry. It was a quango because it was an addition to the Planning Committee, and unfortunately, it focused heavily on just one corner of the borough. And the paper tonight shows that the advisory boards that would relate to this committee are all Western-centric, and they're based in neighbourhoods like Winchmore Hill, Cruise Hill and others. There is no reference to Edmonton Neighbourhood Residents Group, conservation groups, or any in the east or northeast of the borough. So in light of that, we cannot in confidence vote to support this motion. But like I said, there are, proposed change to Constitution. I also want to say that I'm happy that following our advice, the paper was amended because there was a sentence put in there or suggested for removal to allow to not allow council members to get rid of or vote out the leader of the council by a simple majority. And for the sake of democracy, we thought that that should stay in the proposed changes. And I'm glad to see that those changes have stayed in the proposed changes. And in light of that, Madam Mayor, as I mentioned earlier, we will be abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. I'm now going to take a final speaker. Councillor Day, would you like to sum up? You have one more speaker. Councillor Laban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, as someone who's written a few opposition priority businesses, I very much support giving the opportunity to the Green Group. It's an excellent way to put your subject matter across, and I will be supporting the amendment. And I welcome the establishment of the Conservation and Heritage Advisory Board. Unlike Councillor Earble, I valued my time on the Conservation Advisory Group, and I welcome it coming back. I think it shows a commitment of the Conservative minority administration of welcoming and working with community groups that value heritage and conservation in our borough. I am absolutely sure that if conservation groups in Edmonton come forward, that the Leader of the Council will adopt them onto the conservation.
Have you proposed?
Councillors, let Councillor Laban speak.
And I would expect the Leader of the Council to adopt Edmonton conservation groups to be on there so they can give their views on planning applications in Edmonton, and I would expect them to be adopted on this board. But it will be an establishment of working with community groups and conservation groups, something that was abolished by the previous Labour administration. And that was something that was very sad, because these people give their time and energy to preserving our borough's conservation. And we have wonderful conservation and heritage in our borough that is worth preserving, and they give their time and energy to it. And we should be listening to it. And I welcome the fact that we're bringing back this board and that we'll be listening to our community once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davenport now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to second our amendment. This is a modest and proportionate change, but an important one. As we've heard, the Constitution shapes how this council works in practice, how debate is allowed and how different voices are heard. In a minority administration, it's reasonable that more than one opposition group has the opportunity to bring forward business for debate. This amendment does not take away anything from the largest opposition group. It simply ensures that the second largest group also has a route, however limited, to contribute in that way. This is fair and it reflects the makeup of this chamber. Because in a council elected by more than one voice, our processes should reflect that diversity, not restrict it. For these reasons, I am pleased and happy to second the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, returning now to Councillor Day. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. And it's disappointing to note the comments from Councillor Edmund. Perhaps he hasn't read the chapter 2.7 of this report, where it clearly states the Edmonton 100 Historical Society will be invited to attend. And he perhaps, because he was treated the former Conservation Advisory Group with such disdain, perhaps doesn't know that the Enfield Society and the Enfield Archaeological Society cover the entire borough, Madam Mayor, and not just Enfield Town or whatever it was that he said. But as Councillor Laban has rightly said and has taken the words out of my mouth, we will welcome any conservation groups from any ward, anywhere in the borough. So it's an open invitation to members. If you know of conservation groups operating within your wards or even want to set one up, please do, and then they'll be very welcome to join the Conservation Advisory Board, subject to it being approved this evening. Thank you very much for allowing me to clarify those points.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. And congratulations on your maiden speech as well, Councillor Davenport. We are now going to the vote. So all those in favour, please raise your hands. Agreed? We're voting on the amendment, forgive me. Agreeing on the amendment. Those in favour? Amendment is carried. Thank you. And now we're going to go to the vote on the amended motion. Those in favour? Raise your hands. Thank you. Content. And those against? And those abstaining? Motion carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, item 8, appointment of independent persons. We've run out of time on that one. Right, we're moving to item 9. Okay, councillor question time. Right.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move.
Microphone.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move the order of business under 13.20.8 to take motions before questions. And I'd like the order of the motions to be in the following order. So taking motion 10.4, followed by 10.2, followed by 10.6, and then in numerical order from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor. So that's 10.4, 10.2 and 10.6, councillors.
That's correct.
All those in favour? Thank you. And sorry, just catching up. Oh, so motion, we're now moving on to the motions and we're taking them in the order as just set out by Councillor Day. Thank you. So motion 10.4, can I ask for a member to move this item?
Madam Mayor, I move the motion in my name, supporting pupils with medical needs in Enfield schools. This is a practical motion about children who can attend school but need the right support during the school day to do so safely and fully. That support may include healthcare plans, medication, staff training, supervision, risk assessment, emergency arrangements or adjustments to the school day. These are not optional extras. They are what make education possible for some children. The issue we are addressing is what happens when those needs do not sit neatly in one place. They may not clearly fall under SEND provision. They may not come with an education, health and care plan. Instead, they sit between systems: education, health, SEND funding, high needs funding and school budgets. And when that happens, schools and families can be left in the fog. This is not hypothetical. I have been contacted by a local primary school supporting several children who require full-time one-to-one care for medical needs, including diabetes, heart conditions and complex health care. Each of these roles can cost in the region of £30,000 per year. This is a significant pressure on a school budget, and in this case, it is contributing directly to the risk of staff redundancies. So schools are being asked to absorb costs outside their control and to make cuts elsewhere to compensate. And there is another issue, and that is consistency. There are indications that some schools are able to access funding for similar needs, while others are told these needs fall outside SEND and must be absorbed. If that is the case, then we are not dealing with pressure. We may be dealing with inconsistency across the borough, and this raises a serious issue of fairness. Support should not depend on which school a child attends or how well that school can navigate a very unclear system. And when schools try to raise these concerns, they are not finding clear solutions. Issues are raised at school forum, but schools are told there is limited influence locally. National government responses have also been slow. In the meantime, schools are being advised to find cost savings, even when the costs they face are not within their control. So this is not just about individual cases, it is about whether the system itself is working or leaving schools to carry on resolve pressure alone. This motion does not blame schools. It does not say every medical need should become SEND. And it does not ask the council to commit new spending tonight. What it asks for is clarity and a practical route to achieve it. It asks the Cabinet Member for Children's Services to review how support currently works, identify any gaps, particularly when schools are carrying unfunded costs. It asks the Cabinet Member to engage with schools, families and health partners and bring those findings back through scrutiny. And it also asks that we take that evidence forward to government, because this is clearly not just a local issue. Because unsupported medical needs do not disappear, they escalate into attendance issues, safeguarding concerns or greater costs later on. So this is not only about compassion, it is also about prevention. And it rests on a simple principle. No child should miss out on education because adults cannot work out which system or which budget their support belongs to. And if we do not act, the outcome is not neutral. It is schools cutting staff, children missing support, and pressure building elsewhere in the system. This motion gives us a clear, proportionate way forward to understand the system, identify where it is not working, and act before the situation worsens. So I'm asking members not just to acknowledge the issue, but to act on it, to support this motion so we can bring back evidence, improve the system, and ensure no school in the borough is left carrying this burden alone. I urge members to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Day. Is there anyone from the administration who wishes to speak? Councillor. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Councillor Johns for bringing this motion forward on SEND. It's an issue that matters significantly and one I'm glad to see before this council. Just a few days ago, I was in Parliament for an event on SEND. I sat and listened to parents of children with special educational needs and disabilities describe what they live with every day. The fight for the school places, the support that arrives too late, the toll it takes on a child's confidence and on the whole family. I believe every child without exemption deserves the chance and the support to flourish. And the scale of this is not small. In England today, around 1.86 million children have special educational needs. That is more than 1.5 of every pupil in our schools. 1 in 20 now have needs significant enough to require an education, health and care plan, and the number of those plans has more than doubled since 2016. These are not just statistics. Behind every one of them is a child, a classroom and a family waiting on a system that too often makes them wait. Specifically in Enfield, we have the highest number of EHCP requests anywhere in London, and as of the last report, 6,392 children in our schools are on SEND support. And that is exactly why this matters to us. In our manifesto, we made a clear set of promises to the families of this borough. We pledged to transform SEND provisions by creating 200 new SEND places right here in Enfield, lifting outcomes for our children while saving £5 million a year that currently goes on external placements. We pledge to put parents first because parents know their children best. We will give them a real say in every decision with full transparency around care plans and forge genuine partnerships with schools and teachers so that every child gets the tailored support they need to flourish. We will bring back specialised education closer to home with high-quality local provisions for young people whose needs are the most complex. And we will reach out to the young people with a second youth bus, taking agile targeted support straight into the areas that need it most, backed by 95,000 for the fit out and the running costs. These are firm commitments with real numbers behind them, and this motion carries us one step closer to delivering them. So we are proud to vote for this motion, and I urge every councillor in this chamber to do the same, because behind every figure I have read tonight is a child waiting and a parent fighting and a family that deserves better than delay. This is our chance to stand with them, and I would ask Councillor Johns to meet with Councillor Christie, our Cabinet Member for Children's Services, so we can take this forward together and turn the words of this motion into real change for our young people.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Abdullahi.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and I rise to warmly support this motion because at its heart, this is not about systems or structure or funding. It's about children. Children who want no more than to come to school, to learn, to laugh with their friends, and to feel safe while doing so. Children who, through no fault of their own, carry medical conditions that make each school day more complex. And families who live with a quite constant story, Will my child be supported today? Will they be safe? Will they be included? Madam Mayor, I have had the privilege of serving as cabinet member for Children's Services. And during that time, I saw both the strength of our system and its limitations. I saw dedicated staff going above and beyond. Schools stepping in, finding solutions, showing compassion, but I also saw gaps. The moments where a child's need didn't quite fit in the box, where responsibilities became blurred, where support depended too much on goodwill rather than being a guaranteed right. And that should concern all of us, because no child should be left in that uncertainty. No parent should have to fight for basic support, and no school should have to absorb costs just to do what's morally right. Madam Mayor, we have made progress, we have strengthened coordination, we have improved planning, and we should recognize that. But this motion speaks an honest truth. There's more to do. Because when systems are fragmented, it's children who feel it most. So this review is both necessary and appropriate. It's about clarity, it's about fairness, and above all, it's about dignity. Dignity for every child who walks through those school gates. Let's identify the gaps and have the courage to close them. And let's speak with one voice in calling for clearer guidance and fairer funding nationally. In conclusion, Madam Mayor, this is about outcomes. It's about whether a child feels safe enough to learn, whether a parent feels reassured when they say goodbye in the morning, and whether, as a council, we could do more. So yes, we support this motion, but more than that, we support the children behind it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rye, please.
Thank you, Worship. I'm very pleased to support this motion. For many years, I ran a student support centre alongside a very large comprehensive school where we had children with particular needs, be they medical, emotional, learning, and it was staffed with great difficulty. My head of SEN, as it was at that point, headed up the centre, and then I supported it with 3 teaching assistants who took particular courses and training, and it was about including all the children within the school's main curriculum and ensuring that they were all successful. I'm very proud that a number of those children are still in touch with Julie, who is my head of SEN, and myself, and have made a success of their careers. The issue in education, however, is for those who don't have the most complex needs and are therefore in the mainstream, have not got any financial support following them through if they have medical needs. They may have an EHCP and that may support them in terms of accessing learning, but if you've got to go on a training course, as I did, to actually administer something like rectal diazepam, that is something that not many people will volunteer to do, and therefore it is difficult to get staff to undertake some of the more difficult procedures to support children with particular needs. So I think it is an issue that quite rightly does need to go back to government, because when government changed policy to include people in the mainstream when perhaps they couldn't previously, it was done on the cheap and without providing the funding to support. And it's greatly to my disappointment that when I retired and a new head came in, they felt that the Student Support Centre was no longer important and closed it down, and they preferred to focus their attention on other children. And I think that that was very much a retrograde step and meant that children stopped attending school and actually were educated at home or had to find other schools that might provide the sort of support my school used to provide. So I think the motion is a very valid one, and I think the recommendations are appropriate both for here in Enfield, but importantly for lobbying government, because it's there that we need to address this particular issue. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davenport, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very happy to second this motion as well, and I reserve the right to speak later in the debate.
You can speak now, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. This is a practical and necessary motion that reflects that schools are already experiencing. We've heard that some pupils need significant medical support during the school day, and that support does not always sit clearly within existing systems. When that happens, schools are left managing complex situations without a clear route to help. What is particularly concerning is that this may not be consistent across this borough. Some schools appear to be able to access support, while others are expected to absorb the costs themselves. This raises important questions about fairness. From a Green perspective, this is about acting early, understanding where the system is not working before pressures escalate further. This motion asks for something proportionate to review the system, identify gaps, and bring back evidence so that decisions can be made properly. For those reasons, I continue to support this motion, and I urge that members vote in favour of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Day, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much for calling me to speak. And I'd like to start by firstly thanking Councillor Johns for bringing this motion forward. To all of those who have spoken in support of it, and particularly to Councillor Abdullahi for his support in this motion as well, and indicating how the opposition will vote on this. We do have very ambitious plans in this space, and as others have said, this is a very serious topic, but also an area, as I've already learnt in my first month in the role, that's under intense pressure and scrutiny, with significant numbers of children in the borough wishing to access support in this space. So, but I completely agree with all the points that have been raised. I'm very happy to say that we will be agreeing this motion tonight, and will then work with officers to see how we can bring this forward and make it happen. Thank you very much.
Councillor Lever, please. Councillor Dalkea has left, so it's Councillor Lever. No? Okay, we'll go to the vote then. Apologies. Councillor Davenport, would you like to sum up, please? Councillor Johns.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, members, for their contributions. And I think there is clear agreement here in the chamber tonight that children with medical needs should be supported to access education safely and fully. I'm asking for a view so that we can understand the scale and nature of the issues properly across the borough. And I don't feel that currently this all sits within SEND, so we have to acknowledge as well that not all medical needs meet SEND thresholds, and those are often the cases where the gap is the most visible. So we cannot ignore the reality being described by schools in our borough, significant costs, sometimes tens of thousands of pounds, being absorbed locally. And the choice before us tonight is simple. Do we accept that position, or do we take a measured, practical step to understand it properly? Because that is what the motion asks, to review the system. This is proportionate and a reasonable step, and it's guided by a very simple principle. No child should miss out on education because adults cannot work out which system or which budget their support belongs to. I urge members to support the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johns. So we're now going to vote on the motion 10.4. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Carried. Motion carried. Thank you. Motion 10.2 in the name of Councillor Laban. Can I ask you to move the motion in your name, please, Councillor?
Madam Mayor, at the recent local elections, Enfield residents made their voices heard loud and clear. They want us to protect our green belt and countryside. The Conservative administration has already responded positively and decisively. The Leader of the Council wrote to the Government to withdraw Enfield from the New Towns programme. This decision reflects the democratic will of the people we serve. I should know, I stand here with the largest majority on this council. Today's motion simply asks our Labour members of Parliament and our Labour GLA member to support the decision and stand with residents on this important issue. This is not about division, it's about unity in defence of our green spaces and our residents' views. We want to work constructively with our representatives in Parliament and at the GLA. We all have a shared responsibility to listen to the people of Enfield and protect what matters most to them. And at the election, we were told to stop the Newtown project. Nationally, we're at a pivotal moment. We're about to get a new Prime Minister. It would be powerful if we could be united on this issue, no halfway measures, and inform the new Birmingham administration accordingly. Withdrawing from the New Towns programme does not mean turning our backs on housing need. The Conservative administration remains committed to delivering the right homes in the right places and ensuring development is sustainable. But we cannot deny the message from the election. Let us send a clear, united message from Enfield Council that we value our green spaces and that we will fight to protect them for current and future generations. Colleagues, supporting this motion is a positive first step towards that constructive partnership. It shows that on this vital local issue, we can put the outcomes that residents voted for first. You cannot deny you lost your majority. It was this major issue that put us here. Madam Mayor, I move this motion and hope to work collaboratively with all our elected representatives to stop the Newtown programme in Enfield and to deliver what people voted for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is that motion seconded?
Madam Mayor, I second the motion and I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor. And does anyone from the opposition administration speak? Councillor Earble?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the councillors sitting opposite me are going to tell the public that the recent elections were a referendum on the new town, and it was not. It was not. I want to remind them that they don't have the mandate. They are a minority administration. I also want to remind my colleagues on the opposite side of these benches that we have 7,000 families waiting for a council house. We have 3,000 in poor temporary accommodation, living in overcrowded, unsuitable accommodation with dodgy landlords. We need to build homes. The government knows it, the Mayor of London knows it, our residents know it. We've got to build homes. Now, one of the written questions I asked the Leader of the Council where he intends to build those homes, if not on low-grade Greenbelt and Brownfield that we see in Cruise Hill. And his response was the council will continue to work proactively to increase housing delivery across the borough. And then he says estate renewal, and in their manifesto, they mention certain neighbourhoods close to train station. Now, we know what that's code for. We know that they only want to build homes in already overdeveloped neighbourhoods. That means areas like Edmonton, Brimstown, Enfield Lock. That means areas like Palmer's Green. That means areas like Bowes, where we've already got a high number of developments. They don't want to touch their golf courses, the garden centres and low-grade green belt that the government has said, and our local plan that we've been working on for many years says is low-grade green belt. The approach from the previous administration always was brownfield first. And that's what we should always strive towards. But brownfield isn't enough. They've got to understand, Madam Mayor, that this borough needs homes. Young families are being priced out. Local people are living in overcrowded circumstances. I am one of those local people, Madam Mayor. They need to understand that it's not just those people who they speak to in wards like Ridgeway or Whitewebs. It's across the whole borough where they need to listen to those voices. Madam Mayor, I also want to make it very clear that the new town development proposal from this previous administration, working with our government, was always going to be in support of the environment, where we've led 1,000 hectares of rewilding. We have led 1,000 hectares of rewilding in that region of our borough, which they voted against. Time and again, they voted against our capital budget to invest in real green belt. Madam Mayor, I will always stand here and fight for more housing, more decent housing for local people, and I ask my colleagues tonight to vote against this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fox? Councillor Georgiou.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I actually wasn't intending to speak, but I wanted this wonderful opportunity. And I've been a busy little beaver. I've been delving through the Newtown paper submission, and not in one single location was his statement about 6,000 council homes being built. There was never a shred of evidence in the submission that a single council house would be built. He campaigned, and I can't use the L word, apocryphal nonsense to his colleagues, so they all went along like little lemmings, say, "Yo, Councillor Erbil was right. This is why we should destroy the environment. This is why we should destroy the green belt." But I've now got the receipts, Madam Mayor, and I'm clutching onto them tight for the next local election. Councillor Erbil says development will only happen in the east. That is incorrect. We will be proud to develop throughout the borough in sustainable and brownfield locations first. And you know what? Cruise Hill came up time and time again. You know where it came up? In Highfield. You know where it came up? In Southbury. You know where it came up? In the wonderful uplands of Bowes, Madam Mayor. They talk about housing. 16 years they had, 16 years to build out Meridian Water. £500 million of borrowed money. 10,000 units were meant to have been delivered, and only 301 were built. And that slippery liar, Sadiq Khan, stood on a manifesto commitment at his last mayoral election, which he won fair and square, stating very clearly he would protect the green belt. This incoming Labour government said they would protect the environment and the green belt. And I recall previous Labour manifestos on the other side saying they would protect the green belt. Lie, lie, lie from Labour once again. And this isn't just about the environment. This isn't just about golf courses. Where's his golf club now, Madam Mayor? I miss it on those TikTok videos. It's not just about those things. 1,000 jobs at Cruise Hill, 95 businesses. These are people's livelihoods that depend on those nurseries and places of business staying open. There is a human element as well as providing the housing that we desperately need. We need jobs in this borough. Don't worry, they'll be coming over 4 years, because they know as well as we do, they held back sites in the local plan in order to justify the destruction of the green belt and our environment. I will take no lectures from those lot on the other side that want environmental vandalism sacrificed on the altar of socialism, which wants everybody to live in misery. Never again.
Well said.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I invite a speaker from the Greens? Thank you, Councillor Johns.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We will be supporting this motion, but I want to be clear about the reasons why. Because for the Green Party, this is not about saying no to development. It's about saying yes to the right kind of development in the right places. The green belt is not just empty land waiting to be used. Low-grade green belt? It is part of our natural infrastructure, supporting biodiversity, helping manage heat and flood risk, and providing access to open space for residents. And once it's gone, it's gone. Once it's built on, tarmacked over, and fragmented, it is gone for generations. That is why the bar for using greenbelt land must be extremely high. In our view, the new town's approach risks crossing that line far too easily without exhausting the alternatives first. And yes, there are alternatives. We should be looking seriously at retrofitting existing buildings, increasing density in appropriate locations, and making better use of vacant or underused properties. Currently, 1,943. That is 1 in 50 homes. We should be prioritising development on brownfield sites, bringing forward land that has already been used, like finishing Meridian Water. So supporting withdrawal from the New Towns programme is not a rejection of housing needs. We cannot solve today's housing crisis by creating tomorrow's environmental crisis, and we cannot replace green space once it has been lost. So whilst I support this motion, I would also urge the Leader of the Council to be equally clear about the positive alternative, to accelerate brownfield delivery, to invest in retrofit, and to bring back those empty properties back into use. This is how we meet housing needs and protect our environment at the same time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Your Worship, and congratulations on becoming Mayor. I'm very pleased to second Councillor Laban's motion tonight, and I completely agree with it. The Greenbelt are the lungs of London, and I'm proud to represent a beautiful ward called Whitewebbs Ward, now for a second time. And maybe a third, we'll see. A ward that has a significant amount of green belt in it. We have been elected on a clear mandate to protect Enfield's green belt, and we have honoured that commitment. We've made a great start, and we have formally withdrawn from the New Town process. This new Conservative administration promised to the electorate, when we went knocking on doors, when we delivered leaflets and kicked Labour out, finally, that we would save the green belt, that we would stop the New Town. And the Leader of the Council has made a fantastic start, because the night after the new administration was formed, sent a letter to the government withdrawing from the New Town process. Now, this happened the day after the administration was created, and it confirms that we have withdrawn from the New Town process. And I know that residents will see this as promise made, promise kept. And I know the Leader of the Council going forward will do everything in his power to protect all of the green belt as we move over the next few months and years into the rest of this Conservative administration, and indeed when you get re-elected in 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ali. Sorry, Councillor Abdullahi, sorry.
Okay, thanks, Madam Mayor. Let me start by being clear. We all value the green belt. It plays an important role in protecting green spaces, tackling climate pressure, and maintaining the character of our borough. But this motion risks of simplifying what residents voted for. The recent local elections were not a single issue referendum on the green belt. Residents voted for many issues, from local services to national politics, even international issues like Gaza. That's reality. No ballot paper asks, do you support or oppose the New Town? Never. That simply wasn't on the choice before residents. So I would urge caution about claiming an overwhelming mandate for a very specific policy position. And remember, there is still a minority administration that does not have a mandate. And 5 elections in a row, still they cannot win a majority. That's reality. We also need to recognise responsibility we carry as a council. We face peer pressure, a housing crisis, rising demand, families in temporary accommodations, young people priced out of the barrel they grew up in. Those challenges do not disappear by stepping away from national conversation on growth. It shouldn't be about slogans. It should be about careful planning, evidence, and engagement. So supporting the Green Belt and meeting housing needs are not mutually exclusive. Responsible leadership is about balancing both. We should be working with government, influencing proposals, and ensuring any future development reflects our priorities, affordable homes, infrastructure jobs, and environmental protections. Walking away might make a statement, but it does not deliver for our residents. And finally, I will say this, calling on Labour MPs and the GLA member in this way risks politicising an issue that requires collaboration across all levels of government. So we should be building alliances, not drawing lines. For those reasons, I cannot support this motion as drafted. We can protect our green belt and we can still engage constructively in shaping Enfield's future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Calling on Councillor Day.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The other one. Protecting the green belt in Enfield has been a consistent policy of Enfield Conservatives since well before I got involved in local politics. It was right at the heart of many residents' choice to vote for a Conservative administration at the local elections. We honoured that commitment by withdrawing Enfield from the New Towns programme. One of Enfield's MPs recently issued a statement on their website where they stated that they had reflected carefully on the way forward, having listened to residents and the planning inspector's response to the proposed new town, stating that they had concluded that the current proposal was simply too large. This proposal was spearheaded by the previous administration and is now an MP of the same party seemingly doesn't agree with the full extent of the proposals they backed. Any proposal that seeks to destroy our green spaces, thriving local businesses like those in Cruise Hill, and our rich local environment and heritage should not be allowed to go ahead. We have a mandate from the people of Enfield to withdraw from the new town. Despite what the previous leader of the council will tell us, these elections acted as a referendum on it, and the people of Enfield spoke loud and clear. They do not want it. As councillors, we have a duty to deliver on that promise, and we have. One of the first actions of the new administration was to withdraw from the New Towns programme. I would like to see members of Parliament and our member on the GLA go further than just discussing scope and scale, and that is why I'm speaking in support of this motion. We are calling on MPs, GLA members, to support the residents that they have been listening to, supporting our democratic mandate, and support our withdrawal from the New Towns programme. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Day, and congratulations on your maiden speech. Councillor Taylor, please. Thank you.
It's not my maiden speech, but thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and can I thank Councillor Laban for her motion. I do want to take the point that the other Councillor Day here just raised in response to my friend Abdul there. It wasn't a referendum on the Green Belt, the election. If it was, why did two members of the Conservative side on the debate on the Treasury management strategy say it was all about other debt? You can't have everything as the single issue, But I have to say, I think, and I love Joanne Dealey, I think this motion is entirely superfluous. Councillor Giorgio had no need for a mandate from this council to take a decision on the day after the election. He was quite happy to say, I am acting. I have no problems with that. You did not need the authority of this body subsequently. This is another example. You don't need a motion for you to write a letter to the 3 MPs and the GLA member saying, this is what you want. You don't need to do that. So why do we have this motion of virtue signalling, which is all it is? It's not a practical call to arms for the council. That's all it is. But I think there is a really fundamental constitutional issue. Members of Parliament are responsible to their electors. They are not responsible to this council. It is usurping the position of their electorate for us to suggest that we can intermediate what they should think and what they should do. It's their voters that they are accountable to. It's their voters who they should listen to. We can say things, and you can write a letter tomorrow or the day after. I'll even hand deliver it for you to save the post. But you don't need us to pass this motion tonight to do that. There will be debates going forward about how we make the necessary provision for housing in the borough. I'll probably have some disagreements as you seek to intensify housing in Palmer's Green. I don't think that's a popular aspect, and nobody who I met during the election said, I just wish the Conservatives they're elected would build some more housing in Palmer's Green. But we have to take a cross-borough approach about how you properly develop the housing that's required. It's too simple to say there's all these other options of land around that we can build on. To me, we agree what the numbers are that are required, and we then find the most practical way to ensure that we build good, affordable, sustainable housing forward. But we don't need virtue signalling in this chamber to do that. Just need a bit of hard work.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now, to address Councillor Taylor's point, the reason why we have this motion is because we made a promise and we're keeping it. I know colleagues on the other side are not used to keeping their promises. Now, protecting Enfield's green space is not some niche issue or a niche concern. It is a borough-wide mandate. At the election, 77% of voters voted for parties that want to stop the new town. That is 77% across all of Enfield, not just Western Enfield, but every corner of this great borough. That is not some marginal view, that is a democratic instruction from the residents that we represent. Opposition to the new town united people in a way very few issues do. It brought together residents from all backgrounds and all political traditions behind a single shared objective to protect our green space and the green belt. I spoke to many lifelong Labour voters who told me they simply could not support the destruction of our countryside. For them, it was a line that could not be crossed. Now, it is welcome, genuinely welcome, that the Labour MP for Enfield North has shifted position and now agrees that Vicarage Farm in the Great Ward of Ridgeway must be protected. But let's be honest, that is only a start to what is needed. It does not go far enough. All of Enfield's green belt deserves protection from all unacceptable developments. So tonight, I do follow what my colleague has said, and I call on all three of our Labour MPs and our Labour GLA member to do the right thing. Stand with residents, stand up and say unequivocally, enough is enough. Our green belt is not a luxury for one part of Enfield. It is part of our borough's identity. It was part of what makes this borough so special. And it belongs and is valued to all of our residents, wherever you live, whatever ward you reside in. The members opposite have a clear choice this evening. They can back this motion and show they've finally listened to the electorate, or they can show that they've learned nothing from their beating at the election, and they can continue to ignore the very people they pretend to represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I now invite a speaker from the Greens. No, thank you, Councillor Johns. Councillor Ozar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate everyone that's been elected. I wish everyone a prosperous 4 years. Let me begin by saying this clearly. Of course, residents must be heard. In every part of our borough, people care deeply about where they live, and that deserves respect. But, Madam Mayor, leadership is not simply echoing the loudest voices. It's about making fair decisions in the interest of all residents. And that is where the motion fundamentally falls short. Because while we are debating protecting land in one part of Enfield, in other parts, In wards like mine, in Brimsdown, families are overcrowded, young people are priced out, and thousands sit on waiting lists with no clear future. That is the reality of inequality in our borough. So I have to ask, whose interest are we really protecting here? Because when development is proposed in more affluent areas, we hear the language of preservation, of character, of protection. But when development comes to places like Brimsdown, suddenly the tone changes. Suddenly it becomes acceptable, convenient even. We are facing proposals to build hundreds of homes on Brimsdown Sports Ground. Suddenly, surprise, surprise, a space rooted in our community, a space where Sir David Beckham and I myself played as a young person. So where is the campaign to save that? Where are the voices saying that working class communities also deserve green space, also deserve heritage, also deserve protection? Madam Mayor, this is the uncomfortable truth, and this is not just about the Green Belt. This is about who gets to say no and who is expected to accept. And as a Labour councillor, as a socialist, which I know the leader of the council hates, I will always challenge that imbalance. Because fairness is not optional, it's fundamental. Now let me be equally clear. I'm not dismissing the concerns about Cruise Hill. Any development must come with proper infrastructure, genuine consultation, and real benefits for local people. But to withdraw entirely from a conversation about new homes at a time of deep housing crisis is not leadership. It is abdication. We cannot solve a housing crisis by protecting opportunity for some while denying it to others. We cannot build a fair borough by shifting the burden onto same communities from time to time again. Madam Mayor, Enfield must work for everyone, not just the loudest, not just the most affluent, but for every single resident. This motion does not reflect that principle, and for that reason, I urge members to reject it. Thank you.
Councillor Karajo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's Kirio. I want to thank my colleague, Councillor Ban, for bringing this motion because it does something rather important, which is putting Labour on the record and in these chambers tonight where they cannot escape it. So Councillor Ban has asked Labour own representatives, the MPs, the GLA members, to back their own residents. That shouldn't be a very difficult thing to do. And yet here we are. The residents of Enfield overwhelmingly voted to protect the Greenbelt. And they voted that way because they watched Labour run this council for 16 years while quietly signing away 884 hectares, nearly a third of the total Greenbelt that we've got, to a new town programme that would only have cementified our Cruise Hills and Chase Park alone. Now, just to remember, we've got Councillor Erbe, who said just a little bit earlier that we are that kind of party that only want to build in specific areas of this council. And then he goes in March 2025 and get 11.9 million from the Good Growth Fund just to even further cementify Edmonton. That's kind of hilarious, isn't it? And then the new administration took office and acted within days. Letter sent, withdrawal confirmed, promise kept. And this is what honouring a mandate looks like. And what did Labour in Westminster do? Well, that's kind of funny, because the Prime Minister stood up and called this council naysayers and blockers. Madam Mayor, we will not allow Labour representatives, whether in this room, in City Hall or in Westminster, to hide behind party loyalty while their constituents' green spaces are threatened. Councillor Laban is right. Back your residents. It's really that simple. Councillor Laban has got my full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirio.
Madam Mayor, point of personal explanation, because I was referenced. The 11.9 million relates to levelling up Edmonton, and it's levelling up funding. It's not just for housing, it's for improving Edmonton. And it's from the Labour government. I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm proud. None, actually. No, they're all in brownfield spaces, but whatever. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it's a pleasure to speak, and it's a privilege to represent the people that sent me here. London is a negotiated city, and it's one that I'm proud to work in as someone who looks to build new homes. But I think nothing ever good really comes from stepping away from a process that you can quite viably influence and try your best to properly shape. I think, yes, residents have very real concerns around schools and roads, but we also know that there are other residents in this borough that are living in overcrowded accommodation, not least in places like Lower Edmonton and in the eastern corridor of the borough. And yet we have the Conservative Party that, we have to remember why the Greenbelt was introduced. It's a form of electoral gerrymandering to try and preserve for the Conservative Party a part of the borough that they feel doesn't deserve any more new homes. Many of us have a place to live. Many of us are privileged enough to be able to afford our own homes, but there are many people in this borough who can't. And we need to take the steps to deliver new homes. I'm pleased that the government is going to push forward with these plans. I think the MP for Enfield North is correct. She actually did say that we should build new homes, but she applied two very simple tests. One, that we build the infrastructure that we need, and we should try our best to facilitate that. And it's also to listen to residents where we can, whether it's to reduce the scale of the development, but ultimately is to bring it forward. And there was a claim that somehow there wouldn't be any form of affordable housing, or there wasn't any reference to that. Council housing, if you will. Produce the receipts. Produce the receipts.
Councillors, carry on.
Yeah, produce the receipts. Show residents that actually the government will bring forward new council housing. Andy Burnham, the prospective Prime Minister, has made that very clear. I have no doubt. I have no doubt that social rented homes, council homes, in which you will have nomination rights for, that we can start to put people in the homes that they need to give them the kind of security that they deserve, and that will happen. And the leader of the opposition, sorry, the leader of the council, the minority administration, made reference to the fact that I am a lobbyist. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm a consultant, and I work very hard. I work very hard to make sure that we build the homes that we need, and I can't wait for these to be built.
Thank you, Councillor Dwyer, and congratulations to you on your maiden speech tonight. So, Councillor Laban, to sum up, please. Councillor Gregory, we're being told we're out of time, unless you want to extend the time.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to extend the time for this by 5 minutes.
Is that agreed?
Agreed, seconded.
Seconded,
Madam Mayor, yes.
thank you. Seconded and agreed. Gregory.
I welcome this motion brought by Councillor Bunn. One of the many reasons Labour lost control of this council was to do with a new town being built on the green belt of Cruz Hill, a place where many businesses and livelihoods were in jeopardy of being lost forever, a place of tranquility, garden centres, cafes, a place where families at the weekend could visit, a place where those who were inclined, approximately 400 members of the golf course, they could spend their days happily hitting little balls about. You can see I don't know anything about golf. All I know is that they hit little balls about. All in all, I'm asking the Labour members of Parliament, Labour GLA members, to back this council's withdrawal from the New Towns programme. The people of Enfield have voted. The people of Enfield deserve this Greenbelt area for their children and their children's children. And if it's lost forever. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gregory. Councillor Laban, to sum up now, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to thank my Conservative colleagues and members of the Green Group for supporting the motion today. I was hoping for a more united message from this to respect the outcome of the election, because it wasn't just people in the wards that had the green belt that brought up the local plan and the Newtown programme, that why they were voting Conservative. That was an issue that went outside of the wards that has the Newtown in it. That's how important an issue it is. I will say to the Labour group, you will remain in opposition if you don't start listening. And it's clear tonight that you haven't listened to the outcome of the election. Loud and clear, the residents said to us they did not like the Newtown's programme. That is why the administration said the leader of the council, straight after being adopted, that he would be writing and saying that we would be withdrawing. All I was asking is that our members of parliament and our GLA member would get behind this withdrawal and that we could reflect what the residents voted for. Democracy has to act for something, and I wanted us all to be on the same page because I know how important it is when dealing with something on this scale, that when we're all on the same page, it really works together, that we reflect what residents voted for. People voted to protect the Greenbelt. They said no to the Newtowns programme. And I would just like to thank everyone who's going to support me tonight on this important motion. And it's something that very much the residents that voted for me really want to back the withdrawal of the Newtowns programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We are now going to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. Thank you. All those against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you. We now go to item 9. Councillor, questions? No? The next motion. We're going to the next motion. 10.6. It's still out of time, Councillor. Extend.
Madam Mayor, I'll move a procedural motion under CPR 13.20.8 to extend the time allotted to motions by 15 minutes. So we will finish the meeting at 10:20. We've passed the guillotine, so a total of 18 minutes maybe now, whatever's left.
Is that seconded?
I'd like to second my counterpart, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Thank you, councillors. Motion 10.6 in the name of Councillor Councillor Erbal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to put forward this motion as it plays a vital importance to all members in this chamber from all political spectrums. This plays a major standpoint in our manifesto pledges. Houses in multiple occupation, known as HMOs, play a key role in providing affordable housing for individuals in the borough who are individuals, students, or unable to buy their own homes and do not qualify for council housing, or to private rent for a larger property at their budgetary cost. This motion is not about demonising HMOs, as we are aware on the choice some residents make to live in HMOs, but instead to bring awareness and a need of control over these properties. In Enfield, the mandatory HMO scheme is in place, but the previous Labour administration also introduced a borough-wide Article 4 direction in 2013 and the additional HMO scheme in 2020, and renewed this scheme recently. In licensing terms, this allows for property conditions and the management standards in HMO properties to be maintained. It is essential that our HMO stock offers safe and good quality accommodation for residents and without harming the character of the street and the amenity of neighbours. It's also important the number of family-sized homes available in the borough is not unduly reduced because of an over-proliferation of HMOs. Most recently, in wards like mine of Jubilee, and particularly on the eastern corridor of the borough, we have seen an increasing number of planning applications coming through on a weekly basis for conversion of family homes to HMOs. As councillors, we have powers to request call-ins at planning committees to voice our concerns. Therefore, I ask that when these suggestions and when these call-ins are made, the planning chair does not take them quite lightly. This is not just an Enfield issue, this is a national issue. Other boroughs and cities in the country have taken measures on planning policy levels to restrict such clustering of HMOs. For example, County Durham has set out tougher measures on HMOs where applications would be rejected where HMOs would account for more than 10% of residential properties within a 100-metre radius of the site. As the previous Cabinet Member for Planning and Regulatory Services, I had started conversations on this policy with officers. I would urge the Planning Cabinet member as well as the Licensing Cabinet member to continue looking at this and to implement and align changes with our local plan process and with our licensing policies in place. This motion also recognises that where development creates additional pressures on communities, those communities should receive something in return. Exploring community infrastructure levy contributions, known as SIL, where legally possible, is a sensible way of ensuring investment in local infrastructure, cleaner streets and neighbourhood improvements. There are London boroughs who have introduced this, and we should look into this introduction. Importantly, this motion is not solely about planning policy. It also calls for expanded enforcement, greater support for the community reassurance team, and stronger action against antisocial behaviour and environmental issues. HMOs in our borough has a cross-party nature on this issue. During the recent local elections, both major parties recognised residents' concerns about HMO concentration. That demonstrates that this is not a partisan issue. It is one that reflects genuine concerns expressed across Enfield. Supporting HMOs where they are appropriate and well managed is entirely compatible with protecting our residential streets from overconcentration. This motion seeks sensible planning, fair distribution, stronger enforcement and greater local control. It is a pragmatic response to a real issue affecting many of our residents. For those reasons, I am pleased to present this motion and encourage all members to support this. Thank you.
Councillors seconding the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. On the second, I would like to speak as well. We do want to hear you. Sorry, how's that? Madam Mayor, can I welcome you to your place as well? And I'd also like to congratulate everybody who got elected in this election and the Greens who've joined us as well. We may have differing politics, but I know that we all serve our residents to the best of our ability. That brings me to the motion, actually. HMOs are a virus rapidly spreading across our borough. A large proportion of my casework, as I imagine many other people, stems from HMOs. Fly tipping, I've been sent Ring doorbell footage of it, antisocial behaviour, drugs being smoked in back gardens, video games being played until dawn and you can hear that echoing through the walls, fast food mopeds lined up outside HMOs. 10 strangers living in a small family-sized home in Enfield is not normal. It's unfair on the neighbours, unfair on local infrastructure, and quite often unfair on the people living there too. Currently in Jubilee, we're seeing almost an application a day at the moment to convert properties into HMOs, and behind every one of those applications are neighbours whose lives will be affected. Recently, I received an email from a single mother living next to one proposed HMO. She's raising 4 children, two of whom have disabilities, and she told me that her family is still recovering from domestic abuse. Having lived in their council home for over a decade, they have no realistic prospect of moving elsewhere. She wrote that the thought of the constant turnover of unknown occupants next door leaves her deeply worried about her family's safety and stability and well-being. So, as my colleague said, I was deeply disappointed when the new Chair of Planning refused a request to call this in. The decision closed any kind of debate on the issue, denying the resident the chance for me and my colleagues to represent them. The Conservative manifesto promised action on HMOs, and I was pleased to see it. We will challenge the proliferation of new HMOs to preserve the character and stability of our local streets. We will rigorously oppose new applications. I fully appreciate the Planning Committee is non-political, quasi-judicial, but if councillors are denied the opportunity to even represent their residents, then what I need to know from the administration is how they intend to deliver this manifesto pledge. You've offered hope, and this now needs to be followed by action. And I will be holding the administration to account, because across Enfield, and particularly in the east of the borough, we're seeing the consequences firsthand. They're ruining lives, changing the character of our streets, and placing increasing pressure on communities. So we owe it to the people we represent to act. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rye, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. It is unusual that the manifesto of the Labour Party and the Conservative Party coalesce around a policy, and here it clearly does. There is one amendment I need to make to the motion, and that is to delete item 7 as it is written for two reasons. One, it puts undue pressure on the chair of the planning committee, which is entirely inappropriate for the reasons Councillor Barnes has given, that it's a quasi-judicial independent role. But secondly, because new government direction says quite clearly that they do not want items taken to the planning committee referred by members or members of the public. So I'm proposing an amendment to delete item 7. It is in your pack before you, and it says that the Leader of the Council write to the government calling for the planning committee statutory regulations which greatly restrict members and the public requesting applications to be determined by the planning committee to be removed from those regulations. It is outrageous and an attack upon democracy, which I think we all agree on. I'll take this opportunity in speaking to the amendments, time is short, to say I concur with the comments made by the two members opposite. There are some good HMOs that appropriately run and provide useful homes for people who can't afford their own independent larger accommodation. However, sadly, too many HMOs, sadly even by members of the opposition, don't have planning permission and occasionally do not have licences. And enforcement of one in my ward, which caused mayhem to neighbours either side, took a year from start to finish, which I know Councillor Supple is well aware of. So we understand completely the issue that you're raising. As the Cabinet Member for Planning and Regeneration, as the motion states, we need to wait for the local plan to be adopted, and then I will be speedily bringing to Council a policy based around this motion and as strict as we can on HMOs. The other thing that I will be reviewing is the licence charge, which I am told is set independently by the Council, and we have an opportunity there to bring some pressure to bear on these particular units. And I'm sure those that are well run will comply, pay and do a good job, but possibly those that are less well run, that perhaps don't obey the rules well, will choose not to pay, and that might be another mechanism that brings a measure of control. I'm sure that all members will support this motion because nobody wants family units next door to them with 6 or 7 single people, with people staying over, with noise and disturbance, constant comings and goings, large numbers of people gathering in gardens. We're aware of all the issues. We totally understand. A policy will come forward, but I imagine it will be in the new year because the local plan needs to be adopted first. Thank you very much, Your Worship, and I look for a seconder for the amendment.
I would like to... Well, you're more than welcome to. Go for it.
Thank you. So the amendment to the motion is now seconded. Is that agreed? So we proceed with the amended motion. So Councillor Church.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm also making my maiden speech. I welcome the fact that this motion recognises that well-managed HMOs actually have a role to play in housing need, and that matters because we do need to be careful with our language. The problem is not that people have to live in shared accommodation. The problem is poor housing standards, overcrowding, rogue landlords, weak enforcement, pressure on local infrastructure, and some parts of the borough being expected to absorb more than their fair share. So I support a review of the policy, and I think consulting on reducing the concentration threshold from 20 to 10% is a good idea and reasonable, but it does have to be evidence-led. We need joined-up action on licensing, housing standards, waste, fire safety, antisocial behaviour and rogue landlords. It's a systemic issue. And we must keep the focus in the right place. We can't be stigmatising HMO residents. Where I live, there are 3 or 4 HMOs, and they're complex needs for people who are living in those HMOs. Many are simply trying to find somewhere affordable to live in what is a brutal housing market. We know that. So, yeah, let's protect family homes and residential amenity and neighbourhood streets and balance, but this is a housing failure, let's be honest. It's an enforcement failure and a landlord accountability issue. And it's not a reason to turn residents against one another. So while I support the motion, I'm also really keen for us to take a rounded view. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Church, and congratulations on your maiden speech. And Councillor Giorgio, please. And sorry, Councillor Chamberlain, welcome.
I wouldn't presume to correct the Mayor, but it was me next. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well-managed HMOs undoubtedly have a role to play in meeting housing need. Equally, no community should be expected to absorb excessive concentrations of HMOs at the expense of balanced neighbourhoods, family housing and local amenity. For that reason, I very much support this motion in its amended form. Reviewing our planning policies following the adoption of the local plan is sensible. Looking again at the concentration of thresholds deserves real consideration, and strengthening measures to prevent the over-concentration of HMOs are, I think, objectives that we can all really get behind and welcome, because they merit serious discussion. I also welcome the recognition that communities experiencing the greatest pressures should not simply be expected to cope without appropriate support and effective enforcement. And I think as Conservatives, one of the things we do care about quite strongly is that this council can deliver that enforcement. It's difficult in the original form because my concerns were that we were referring to things that the council may not have had control over. We don't control what the government decides, and we don't control what other bodies do. But we can work on them. We can work on them. Likewise, important changes to planning policy cannot simply be declared by passing a motion in this chamber. They require proper evidence, statutory consultation, professional assessment, and where appropriate, independent examination. And those safeguards do exist for good reason. So I welcome the amendments to this motion, Your Worship. I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Your Worship, and colleagues. I'd just like to agree with a number of the comments that have been made in this debate, namely actually just the nature of many of the streets that some of our residents have had to witness the change in character. In Lower Edmonton, since I've been elected, I've been astounded actually by the number of applications that have come through for HMOs. I can't tell you the number of conversations I've had with namely families who've had to bear the disruption from a number of typically young men living in some of these properties. And while I agree with Councillor Church that we shouldn't stigmatise or in any way demonise those who live there, it's often a function of the fact that either these properties are not well managed, they're not properly enforced upon. And actually, while I think the motion is a good one, something that I think we should consider in the future, and are we pushing for Article 4 directions to be implemented in the eastern corridor of the borough, because currently the Article 4s that are in place, most of them are in the west, and there's no surprise there that they've been implemented in that way. And I think that will come to try and restrict the number of HMOs that do come forward and try and manage them in a better way. I think to the point that they are an affordable housing alternative, indeed they are, but I think fundamentally we must build new homes, and that's one of the ways that we can try and take pressure off some of these streets, especially those that are predominantly dominated by families. And I welcome the motion and encourage all colleagues to support it.
Thank you, Councillor. We're now coming to the end of the meeting, so I will invite Councillor Erbel to sum up before we go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's great to see that there's cross-party agreement on such a vital issue. I agree to the reasonable amendments, and I agree. And it's welcoming to hear from Councillor Rye that he'll be looking into license charges. And also, of course, we need to understand that there is a process in this council where the local plan has to go through for certain changes to come. So it is understandable. And I'd like to thank Councillor Church for recognising the issues that also come along with HMOs, and I echo what she has said. So the I believe there should be a cross-party work on this, and it should be commenced because we all agree on it, and it's something that it rarely happens. So it's good to hear that. And I just want to say, it's not just about new HMOs coming forward, it's also about monitoring existing HMOs. And I know our licensing cabinet member would be taking a harsh view on this, and I'd encourage her to continue the work that the Labour administration were doing on this. So it's good to see that all members are agreeing, and I welcome that this motion is supported, and hopefully we will vote as we've said. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. So is the amended motion agreed? Motion carried. Thank you. Right, councillors, I'm conscious of the time. I know we started later, so reports are under guillotine. I'll now put the remaining reports to the vote. Under the guillotine arrangements, there's no debate, no roll call, no speeches, and all reports are deemed formally moved and seconded. When I call out the item, please vote by show of hands for, against, or abstain. Remaining motions will now lapse, and we're going to item 8, appointment of independent persons. Those in favour, you can raise your hands. Agree? Motion carried. And remaining motions now lapsing. Answers to questions will be taken as printed on the supplementary agenda. Thank you. And we move to date of nominations of outside bodies are as will be circulated. Is that correct? And next meeting is Wednesday, the 16th of September at 7 o'clock, going back to the original time because we had to delay it for the football. And thank you to the officers for facilitating that councillors were here and not racing to get here. And that concludes the business of the meeting. And thank you, councillors. And I very much welcome you to join me in the Mayor's Parlour for some refreshments that have been laid out for you. And thank you for those who've stayed in the public gallery all this time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.